Thanks for watching this video on co-student sexual misconduct policy and our role within it. Our role as employees is what this is about. My name is Tom Hicks, and I'm the Dean of Students and Title IX Coordinator at CO. Our few objectives today are to understand the goals of the current student sexual misconduct policy and understand student sexual misconduct basics of that policy, identify your role as a non-confidential resource, identify and refer students to appropriate resources, and use resources provided to help students understand faculty or staff roles within the policy. Why do we have a policy? It's because misconduct and assault happen, unfortunately. 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 women are assaulted. That's a commonly accepted percentage or number. And 9 in 10 know they're assaulters. So being on a college campus, we are primed to have incidents like this happen, unfortunately. We also expect students not to commit crimes. Sexual misconduct is a crime of power and control, and it's our expectation that students are behaving themselves as well as they can while they're on campus. We also know we have to provide guidance for that behavior, and so within our policy, it provides a lot of information about what affirmative consent is and how to go about receiving appropriate affirmative consent. There's also increased scrutiny, guidance, and legislation through Title IX and the Violence Against Women Act and a few other areas that all higher education institutions are having to live up to now. And as I go through this, I want to let you know that I'll be using some terms interchangeably, but I want to let you know that I recognize that when I say misconduct, it usually means broad based violence or misconduct or behavior, whereas assault is a very specific type of sexual misconduct. So in order to comply with the legal requirements, we need to, via Title IX, adopt and publish a notice of non-discrimination, which we do, and adopt and publish policies prohibiting sex discrimination and grievance procedures, complaint procedures, for prompt and equitable resolution of complaints. Violence Against Women Act also requires a policy statement providing details regarding procedures for victims to follow, disciplinary procedures, sanctions and remedies, confidentiality, resources, and interim measures. Our policy includes all of this information, and because of that, and because of a lot of the other resources we provide, it's a 20-page policy for our students. You've probably heard a lot about Title IX recently, especially on higher education campuses, but the quick overview is no person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in or denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any educational program or activity receiving federal aid. And recently that was expanded and updated to include the sexual harassment of students, including sexual violence, interferes with students' right to receive an education free from discrimination, and in the case of sexual violence is a crime. Our goals of the policy is to make it as easy and comfortable for a victim survivor to report misconduct. That means giving back as much power and control as possible, eliminating confusion within the policy, and attempt to simplify when possible and involve as few people as possible. We also need to provide support and be equitable for all students, including respondent involved in a report. You'll hear these two terms. Complainant is the alleged victim and respondent is the alleged perpetrator. And through our process, once a complaint comes in, we refer to them as complainant and respondent. Also, follow through on our duty to investigate and report statistics via Clery and Title IX. All college campuses are required to report out statistics on crime via the Clery Act, and Title IX also requires us to investigate every report we receive of sexual misconduct on campus. One of the things we've tried to do over the past few years is to be as proactive as possible. We need to provide a safe, productive learning environment that's free from discrimination. We need to focus on education, awareness, and prevention. So much of the effort so far with Title IX have been focused on compliance, and just now are we getting to the point where we can do some more education, awareness, and prevention. Continue to adjust the process to be fair. Every year we'll make some small changes in order to make sure all students involved have the rights and options that they deserve. And trying to anticipate any scrutiny that may come through Violence Against Women Act, Clery, or Title IX, or OCR, Office of Civil Rights decisions. So here are some basics of the policy. Our policy is based on affirmative consent, which protects both or all students involved in a sexual act by giving clear expectations for communication. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. That means it needs to be knowing, voluntary, and affirmative. And it came from RSVP efforts, Rape and Sexual Violence Protection Student Group in 2015. And at that time, we were one of very few schools in the country to adopt such a policy. And one good way to uh, see what that policy looks like in action would be to watch the T consent video. And there's a link here. I would recommend you checking it out. It's just a few minutes long, and it demonstrates what affirmative consent really, really looks like. And we show it to all students when they arrive in August. Here's our entire policy. Feel free to pause this video to read through it. So I call what is sexual misconduct and harassment? It is an umbrella term for sex discrimination, harassment, sexual violence, which includes sexual assault, non-consensual sexual contact, non-consensual sexual intercourse, and or sexual exploitation, dating violence, domestic violence, and stalking. So it's a pretty big umbrella. And these are recommendations that are coming from Title IX and VAWA. Next, we'll talk about employee roles. All employees at CO play one of these three roles. You're either a confidential resource, you're the sexual misconduct coordinator, or you're a non-confidential resource or mandatory reporter. All employees are expected to provide support and resources. So even if you don't know the answer to something, we'll provide you resources so you can help students get to somebody who knows. When in doubt, contact me. My extension is 8843 and my email is thicks@co.edu, and should be able to respond quickly to provide you some more information to support students. We'll start with confidential resources. They provide students with a confidential outlet. They are unbiased, provide resources, don't have to report out unless a student is at harm to themselves or others. They are all trained, and names are listed below. We have 2 faculty, one in athletics, one male, and here are their photos. We also have off-campus confidential resources. We are lucky to be in a place like Cedar Rapids that has so many of these. We offer free counseling, general counseling for students for free through St. Luke's, and they can also provide support in the event of sexual misconduct incident. Riverview Center, they have advocates for victims available for free. And St. Luke's and Mercy Hospitals, they offer exams and SANE nurses and provide a lot of these services for free or very cheap. And so we're lucky to be able to have those nearby. Our sexual misconduct coordinator, her name is Krista Kronstein. She is not confidential, and she's notified of misconduct via non-confidential resources. She's unbiased, provides resources, and has to report out statistics without identifying information, or if a victim chooses to press charges or is looking for other interim solutions through this process. She also, when she gets a report, she offers 3 different people, herself included, to do the intake for these cases. The 2 other people are Tess Werner in Human Resources and myself, and that just gives students a little bit more control over who and how their information is shared. This is Krista. She's also our Director of Residence Life, so you'll find her in the Student Development Suite in Upper Gage. And then non-confidential / mandatory reporters. We still use the mandatory reporter term because that's what many of our students are used to coming from the K through 12 system. And this includes all employees who are not a confidential resource, which is likely you if you're watching this right now. So that means you're required to refer all sexual misconduct information to Krista, the sexual misconduct coordinator. This allows us to decrease confusion. It's simpler than any previous processes that we had. And you're all considered reasonable employees. And all of the human resources literature out there says that reasonable employees should be reporting this information to somebody. And it's also the outcome of a few OCR investigations involving other institutions that they've recommended that this be the case for all reasonable employees. So we're trying to follow that as much as possible. The other piece is, especially if the assault happened recently, we want to try to help that student get to health services or some sort of medical assistance because health and welfare are number one. And often, physically, emotionally, and psychologically, this is a lot to handle. And especially if there's some evidence that still can be collected, we want to try to get them over to somebody who's confidential and can provide that support. So, in your work with students, you will likely get to know some of them very well, either through instruction or supervision. And we know that this policy, this mandatory reporting, may influence or change your relationship with students. One of the things that we can provide for you that's on my.co is a helping students get help handout. And this includes text to include in syllabi or expectations if you're advising a group. And we just recommend that you be upfront and honest with your class or group or organization, student workers with whom you're working, to let them know that you are a mandatory reporter. It is much easier to do that, even though if you don't think you're going to need it, than it is to introduce that into the conversation as they're telling you about something that's happened. So please try to be as proactive about that as possible. We also want to remind them of the goals. It's their health and welfare, and to make this as easy and simple for them through this process. As a result of this policy, reports have increased at some institutions because they are catching more, and faculty and staff, employees are more aware of what the policy looks like. So what happens with the report? Once received, the sexual misconduct coordinator will contact the student to meet in person, and will make sure the student is safe. The student doesn't have to meet with Krista. They can choose to meet or talk as much or as little as they want to. If they choose to meet, and even if they don't, via email, we'll provide resources, options, and information about our process and options in Cedar Rapids. You won't be kept in the loop. We have to keep these as confidential and private as possible, and we just want to let you know that up front. Co has made a decision that whenever a report of sexual misconduct is passed along to Krista, we send out a security bulletin. It's relatively general, and it provides some basic information about what happened, when it happened, where it happened, and a whole bunch of information about what to do, how to prevent it, and where to get more information about Title IX. So you will see those come out from time to time as we get reports that come in through our office. A new option this year that students have is called Callisto. It's an online trauma-informed reporting tool. And it allows students to log incidents, access resources, and report when ready. And we're one of only 6 institutions in the country that are using it, and students have received it well. Senate wanted to improve this process, and so they put a lot of money for it in order to make this happen. Students can access Callisto through my.co. One of the questions we get often is how to help a victim survivor. And the best thing that you can do is be a good listener. And oftentimes at the beginning, you can clarify your confidentiality role, but sometimes you might need to pause the conversation a little bit just to remind students. Some students want to come to you because they know that you are going to have to pass this along to somebody else and they want your support in doing so. Sometimes they forget because everybody tends to have pretty close relationships on campus, and so reminding them is a good thing. Use some emotional first aid. Let them know that you believe them and it's not their fault and you're here to help, not judge. And obviously, as we said before, report to Krista and try to connect the student to health services. Lindsay is the nurse practitioner there, and that will allow for that student to get any medical, emotional, or psychological assistance they may need in the moment. We have the student sexual misconduct policy available on co.edu/Title IX. Please go there and check it out. And then the Helping Students Get Help document, which is available on my.co for all faculty and staff. This includes information about students who have safety concerns, how to handle a sexual assault report, syllabi statements, and frequently asked questions about this process. There's also a bunch of resources on co.edu/Title IX. So if you're looking to get a little bit more educated or provide information for students, that's a good place to send people so they can get some more information. This is what it looks like on my.co. And just want to mention a couple of additional items. Cases are heard by a review panel now, and that's how they get resolved if a student chooses to go forward and have their case heard, in quotes, by the institution. We also put together investigative reports once all these cases are investigated. And students can have any advisor they want through this process. It can be a faculty or a staff person or a student or a family member. Anybody who isn't a witness to what happened can be an advisor. Another item that we are working with students on to deploy a little bit further are some apps. Yes to Sex is an app that allows people to use phones, one or two phones or smart devices, in order to consent. And some students have used it just to make sure that they are clear on their intent with their partner. Companion is another app that essentially is a protection app. It allows students, and it's one of many that's like this, to designate their location and allow predetermined friends and family members to track where they're going. And if they take their finger off the screen for more than 15 seconds, it gives them the option to be those friends or family or an emergency number to automatically be called. And there are more and more apps like that coming out every month. And this is what Companion looks like. This is the consent video again. I would recommend checking it out. I won't include it in this video here, but I will say it is well worth your time. And this is another video coming out of Canada about consent. And so it's called Get Consent, and it's worth checking out as well. These are worth sharing with students if they're having any questions about what affirmative consent looks like. Resources. There's a bunch of resources through Sexual Assault Awareness Month website, Title IX at Co, and It's on Us, the government's, federal government's kind of reaction response to this. So, of course, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. I'm happy to help you out in your classes or clarify anything for you. Over the years, we've developed some education and prevention events. All new students complete an online module called Haven about alcohol and sexual consent. Sex Signals is a duo that performs during orientation that addresses sexual assault. She Said, He Said is a similar duo that comes to us from Katie Kessner, a big advocate in this area. And they come to campus every winter. RSVP has done a great consent week the last couple of years, including a Take Back the Night rally. We've had some monthly events and giveaways this year, and we had policy sessions on August 30th and August 31st for students in Cherry Auditorium, just to try to make sure we're covering all of our bases. Thank you, and unlike this presentation says, you won't need to sign on the clipboard, but we do want to track everybody through Human Resources who's watched this. So thanks for your time. Please let me know if you have any questions.